Okay, so shall we start with meditation, Vita, as usual?
Yes, please.
Yeah, well, okay. Um, so we'll meditate for half an hour. I'll give a bit of instruction, but most of you are conversant with meditation. So let me fix my little clock. So take a posture that is comfortable and composed. Close your eyes and know the way things are. Listen, start by listening to sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. So maybe you have some air conditioning or something. Notice the changing nature of sound. And notice the unchanging nature of awareness. So the sounds are the foreground, and awareness is the background. Foreground is moving, background is still. Be that awakened background awareness. Feel the breathing of the body. Feel the breathing of the body. Notice the movement of breath and notice the stillness of awareness. Movement is foreground. Stillness is background, awakened consciousness, awareness. Toggle between the two. Listen to sound. There's the movement of sound, and there's the silence of awareness. Go to the breathing. Know the breathing of the body. There's the movement of breath and the stillness of awareness, knowing. So the background is stillness, silent. The foreground moves with physical feelings, thoughts, memories. So now we try to abide as the background, as awakened consciousness. So then choose the breathing as a way of composure. The breath in, the breath out. And get a feeling for stillness, knowing movement. So it's not a hard focus on the breath that you would do in other circumstances, but here it's just like an open awareness. And the breath kind of composes the scattered mind. And there's the background stillness, one breath at a time. So it's still knowing with an in-breath, still knowing with an out breath. So that's quite simple. Just try that out, see how it works. It's kind of like an act of surrender, giving yourself to one in-breath, one out-breath. That takes a lot of patience. Takes a lot of patience. So you get caught up with thinking, no problem. Surrender to an in-breath. Give yourself to an out-breath, time and time again. So you're not trying to get rid of thinking. That will just make you tense. But you're choosing not to run with the thinking mind. When you notice you're thinking, you give that up. Surrender to an in-breath, silent knowing, and so on. So let go of the future, let go of the past. So meditation is like a remembering rather than a controlling or forcing, a remembering of the present moment, a remembering of the feeling of the breath, and remembering to just be with that knowing. So the thinking mind has a strong momentum. And the idea is not to try to get rid of thinking, but also not to engage with the thinking. So there's a kind of middle way of awakening. So when you notice thought is there, you also have the awakened mind. So that's a moment to like open your mind and know where you are. I'm here now. The body feels this way. And then pick up the breath. So it's quite deliberate, rather than a reaction to thinking, trying to get rid of thought, not being quite awake. So the thoughts notice that you're thinking about tomorrow, whatever, and then all thought feels this way. Planning feels this way, and then the mind is awake. So really establish that sense of being present, knowing what's going on. Body feels this way, and then engage with the breath. And do that again and again and again. So that's why we sit. It takes a lot of patience because the thinking mind has tremendous momentum. And to try to get rid of it doesn't really work. But to not make any determinations or any intentions to not follow thought, that doesn't work either. So it's a kind of middle way. Thought feels this way. Open the mind, feel the body, pick up the breath. All right, let's stop there. Open your eyes and stretch your legs if you want.
Thank you, Luang. We shall now request for Dhamma. Rama Chanoka Vivati Sahabhati Patan Jaya Divaya Yajata Santi Santi Avajata Jatika Desi Dhamma Anukam Imam Bhaja.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm at Tishrana Monastery, as you know. So maybe a monastery report first. It's always fun. So it's the summer temperatures have just begun last 2 days. So we're in the high 20s this afternoon. And we've had a good amount of rain, so everything's very green and beautiful. And for some reason, there seem to be less mosquitoes, which makes me very happy. Don't really like mosquitoes. And Ajahn Karuniko saw a doe with a fawn. So the does are pregnant, they're giving birth. So they'll be gambling around the front garden here. Very cute, as you know. It's really very, very beautiful. And walking through the forest, I'm reminded that the Buddha's recommendation was, if possible, to live in forest abodes. And just like the color green, the shape of a tree, a moss on the ground, a chipmunk running through your feet, all these things they're part of the natural beauty of a forest environment. And the sounds and rhythms of nature are really what our bodies are about. These are nature bodies. They're not separate from nature. And I think for myself, and I think for all of us, just pausing in the different landscapes that we have here is a big source of stillness and happiness that exists. City environments, of course, are different. So when I was in London, I visited the British Museum with Ajahn Hassanam and Ajahn Nyanyiko. Ajahn Nyanyiko had never been to England. He's the abbot of Abhayagiri. And it was interesting, but exhausting. I wouldn't want to do that every day. I love to walk through the forest every day. So different environments affect us differently. And the thing about the breath is it's a natural phenomenon. It just naturally flows. And the more you can just make contact with the natural breathing of the body, the more you are in contact with the natural reality of the human condition. Cities, of course, are not geared to, they're not geared to tranquility, they're geared to commerce, to speed, to many kinds of efficiencies, I suppose. And so they have a different effect on us. So we have 4 gentlemen here who are guests, so they have a chance to feel the kind of natural environment that we have here. But I feel very fortunate, obviously very fortunate to live this life. There's a lot of building work going on right now. Kudos to Ajahn Sirimedo for his work. He's sort of directing a lot of the work in the new Dhamma hall, and that's it's looking so lovely, so lovely. We're happy with the progress. And our katina, our first ceremony will be the October the 31st. So if you're in our territory, please come visit at that time. And then we're putting a new roof on the house. So any of you who have visited us, we're trying to create better accommodation for our lay guests. And we can, like, we'll only put the roof on, then when the Dharma hall is finished, then we'll start more work on the house. So there's good things happening there. One of the really beautiful things that happened this past week, um, we have a small fund that we use for charities. So we are a charity ourselves. So the funds that come to us are obviously for the maintenance of this place and the Sangha's use and so on. But we try to put a little bit aside for maybe some local charity just to participate. And we have a friend who works for UNHCR, and she was very much involved in humanitarian work in Afghanistan. And when the Western countries left Afghanistan, she was in contact with a lot of people who were trying to get out and were having great difficulties and a lot of violence. And we've seen all that kind of news. And she organized two families to get out, related families, of 12 people total. Three of the adults are doctors, and three kids are going to primary school, two are teenagers. And we helped in the financing of their expatriation, is that the word? Of their leaving from Pakistan. They made it to Pakistan, made it here. So that was lovely to try to help them. And they're a lovely family, really beautiful family. And so then we thought, well, we have extra food that people give us, and we usually give extra food that we have. We give it to the food bank in Ottawa. We have a friend there. We thought, well, we could maybe pass it on to this good family. And then Venerable Amarasiri had a brilliant idea. Well, he was teaching in Scarborough, in Toronto, and he knew of an Afghani grocery store in Toronto. So he said, well, maybe we could get them some Afghani goodies. So after the retreat that he taught, Usha, who was running the retreat, she said, well, I'll take you there and we'll pay for the whole thing. Okay. So they went there and they just started to load up the carts. I think they had like 4 carts full of groceries, all Afghani food. So 2 days ago, we went there, and I can see Imam was actually on this YouTube, on the Zoom session. Imam was there with his family, and we were able to offer offer these things to them, and it was such a joyous occasion. I don't know if he was more happy or I was more happy. And they were looking at all the kind of sweets that they're used to having in Afghanistan and the basmati rice. So yeah, I got to thinking, who benefits more, myself or him? Anyway, we had a lovely time with the family, and they looked really very healthy, very bright, very engaging. So linguistically, it was a bit difficult. But I asked Imal, I asked him, so what's the spiritual significance of Ramadan? How does that work? And he said, well, it's three things. One, Ramadan is the Muslim fasting, which is quite onerous. It's 16 hours a day, no water. So it's a very tough practice. And he said, well, the first thing is by feeling hunger, you remember the hunger of others. So it's a consideration of compassion. And I thought, well, isn't that beautiful? It's a really interesting way to consider that. And that really reflects on some of the Buddhist teachings on compassion. And some of the ways we phrase that, we say, like if someone hurts me or abuses me or does something unpleasant to me, I say to myself, just as the pain I feel now caused by this person, all beings who are in those situations of hurt feel the same pain. I make a determination not to inflict that kind of pain on others. So it's a very, very interesting way of contemplating compassion, where you're hurt by life in some way. And rather than thinking, oh, it's not fair, or thinking revengeful thoughts, the Buddha asks us, take it to compassion and bring it to compassion. So this suggestion that not in not eating, you feel the hunger, and you think anyone who feels hunger needs food. And so the heart opens in compassion. And that's always been one of the great insights I had from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, that compassion is the method. I've always liked the line. Compassion isn't just a sort of practice that you do, it is the method of wholesome human relationship. When we talk about um, Buddhism in terms of developing the mind and understanding the mind, uh, quite often it can sound selfish. We're always thinking about ourselves. So there is this social component of our lives, which is very, very important. So, like in Singapore, we have the Firefly Group who do all their humanitarian work, and we have in Bangkok the Angel Group who do their humanitarian work. So the lived experience of Buddhist practice isn't just meditation. It isn't just self-reflection. It is a going out into the world with the resources one has, if one has resources, and sharing and giving and trying to develop the heart of compassion, making that very central to one's life. Then the development of the inner world, of course, is helped by that, obviously, because that is the inner world. The second part that Imal said, the second part of the Ramadan, the second, was that uh, it's purification. Like if you don't eat for 16 hours, purify the body. And I was like, well, that's what the monks do, except we do it every day. We don't eat from midday till the following. So how many hours is that? That's 16 hours, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah. Well, that's cool. And maybe it is a kind of cleansing. And then the third part was it gives you more time for prayer. And like we don't have an evening meal, we have an evening meditation. So I thought, well, there's a lot of parallels there. A lot of parallels. And also, like, as we were sitting with Imal's family, we asked, can we do some chanting? We didn't know like what their customs were. Is this going to be appropriate? And they said, sure, do some chanting. So we chanted the uh, verses of victory, I think. And they understood some words because I guess their Darya language has some Pali words in it or something. And then the grandmother, she then said, well, can I do a doha? Can I do a prayer? So then she did a prayer. And that was love. I didn't understand it, but it didn't really matter, did it? Because this wasn't the doctrinal presentation of points of, who's right and who's wrong, but it was just heartfelt connection to families, to cultures coming together and finding common ground. And one of the things when we started to discuss spirituality, Imal asked me, well, I can't remember quite how he said, but he said, is it the heart or is it the head? I said, is it the heart or is it the head? And we both agreed it's the heart. This is what's important. So our doctrines had, no significance really in the situation. And then they asked me to talk about Buddhism. I thought, okay, so how can I use the word God or not use it? So and this is where you see if I'm just a doctrinal Buddhist and I just have these beliefs, then I have no flexibility to talk to people through other cultures and other religious traditions. And so I think basically I kind of asked, is God inside or outside? And we all agreed God was inside, just as a way of talking. And then from that, we could talk about compassion and kindness and so on. So it's really, really very, very, well, really beautiful coming together. And the upshot of it is that we now have an invitation to Imal's home for an Afghani meal at our time. They wanted to give us food then, but well, we couldn't eat then. So it's such a joy to see the human family coming together in a way which is based on the heart rather than ideas and doctrines and all of that. So compassion for me is, when I think about my um, the things that I'm interested in the spiritual life, in obviously I've got a background of having studied the texts, but much of my teaching has come from an oral presentation from Lopa Sumedho, from Lopa Cha, and others. And the two things that I keep coming back to are silence and compassion. Those somehow, if I can keep my attention on those, then those I find most fulfilling, most rewarding, and most connected to life, most connected to life. So silence or stillness, how do we touch that? Because all of us have an appreciation of that. All of us would really like the mind to think less. We'd like our emotions to be a bit more balanced and so on and so forth. Well, I think this is what Luang Por Sumedho's teaching is pointing to when he says it's like this. Banyang ni eng. We were talking about where that phrase might have originally come from, and we were thinking maybe Lompa Buddhadasa introduced that into Thai culture, Banyang ni eng. When you say, like when you listen to sound, and you say sound is like this, and you're attentive, then you start to notice the silence, the stillness, silence, the stillness. When you notice, and so you find in the language of meditation contrasts. So sometimes we talk about the sky and the clouds in the sky. A book, we talk about the print and the white of the page. I like to talk about the foreground and background. Now the foreground is where most of our attention is necessarily placed. We need to go to work, we need to drive a car, we need to cook, we need to do all kinds of things. But when there is only the foreground, when we're only responding or reacting to sense stimuli, then there's no peace. There's no peace there. When we learn in meditation, in walking in the forest, in retreat, in stepping back from the compulsions of sense experience, when we begin to touch the background, silence, we find a place to rest. We find a place to just be rather than become or get rid of anything. And this is very, very important because oftentimes our inner world, it holds a lot of stress. You think about, all of us have had childhood experiences. Maybe we've had, parental things which weren't pleasant. Maybe in school we had difficulties, and so we formed a personality from all those cultural influences, and then they get lodged in your breathing system, fears and anxieties and so on. And I don't, and my own experience of Buddhist, let's say, of purification, that those experiences we have where things just come up into consciousness, which are really not about this moment. This moment triggers them, but they come out of us as anxiety or as anger or as irritation. These are very, very important moments because they are moments of liberation where these deeply held, bodily held things in our subconscious come to the surface. And if we have enough refuge in awareness, if we really contemplated the background, when they come forward into the foreground, we know that is not who we are. I am not this anxiety. I am not this fear. I'm not this anger. These are phenomena that come and go. But if we have no background, if we have no refuge, it's very, very hard, and they're very believable because emotions, they are this that the emotions are real. They're not unreal. They are, you feel them, and they create a strong sense of self. But the sense of self is not real. It's ephemeral. It comes and it goes with those conditions. So if my home ground, my identity is with the background, with the silence, with awareness, with awakened consciousness, then um, if things get triggered, then there's a great release. It's a great, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do that because it seems like something is wrong. It seems like something is wrong, but there's nothing wrong, really. It's just nature in its modes of purification. Now, silence is not a thought. Um, we received a book today um, on karma. How did it go? It was one of those books that now will define karma, finally. I've gotten maybe in my lifetime, I've gotten maybe 5 million books which have defined karma. This is the final definition. And you find this in people who just think that Buddhism is a conceptual structure. Conceptual structures might point in a very skillful way, but concepts are not liberating. Concepts are actually just sankharas. They're just constructs. They're like that. And so silence is not a construct. You don't construct that. You notice that. Thought thought is a construct. So we can use thought skillfully or unskillfully. But I would hope that we would not leave Buddhist practices at a merely mental level, where we think we understand because we can say the right words. Then we just become conditioned in a Buddhist sense, which isn't bad. You're still encouraged to live morally and so on. But the deeper implications, I think, of the Buddhist teachings are, for me, compassion and stillness. Because I think that those two, for me, I don't know about you, but those two, for me, uh, have a profound direction. The direction is inward, and yet the direction of inwardness does not separate; it actually connects. So, in terms of compassion, I, as you probably know, I found incredibly helpful constant attention on the heart, on this area in the center of the chest. And this is why it was lovely when Imal asked me, is it the heart or the head? Now, when I first started meditation, I was very, very head-centered, very thought-centered, and it was very hard actually to begin to abide here. But I found over the years that this is also a refuge. This is a kind of place of resting, especially in human relationships. Because if I can rest here, then I tend to understand others. I tend to communicate better. If I'm just in the head and reacting, then I tend to just have an answer that maybe isn't very appropriate. Now, going back to this idea of purification, um, just as when you fast and the body has a chance to release some toxins, I think when we stop engaging in the thinking mind, when we stop conceptualizing, when we stop always creating a sense of self through thought, and we learn how to abide in compassionate silence, then, for me at least, all kinds of interesting and difficult material has come into consciousness. But then the release of that, and where I felt those releases are very much in the breathing channel, in the throat chakra, in the heart chakra, in the belly, and the fears and difficulties of a lifetime of cultural conditioning and family conditioning, when they come to the surface, there can be very, very powerful and very difficult to deal with. But because one has a refuge in compassion and silence, then as they come through, then this is the liberation of karma. This is a liberation of the held subconscious feelings that we don't sometimes even know about. But so this is a kind of fasting, a fasting from trying to do something, a fasting from trying to get something, a fasting from always analyzing and thinking. And there's nothing wrong with analysis and thinking. It's all very, very good. But silence is not a thought. Stillness is not a thought. And it's not the stillness of just controlling. Because you can certainly like you could focus on something. I could focus on the Buddha image here and just hold my thinking mind at bay. But that would just be suppressing everything. What we're talking about is an openness of awareness and noticing what's going on, sound, bodily feeling, whatever it might be, thought, emotion, noticing the changing and noticing that within the changing, there's the unchanging. There's the silence, there's the background. And once you get that pattern in things which are not challenging, like sound, uh, ordinary things, then you intuitively start to use that model to deal with the more difficult things, such as emotional habits and reactions and self-doubt. Let me say something like self-doubt. Self-doubt can be very crippling, or self-disparagement can be crippling. And it's an emotional construct where a sense of self is created. And that construct is changing. It's triggered according to causes and conditions, but the background is unchanging. So then, rather than taking self-doubt and then thinking and trying to not have self-doubt, we take Luang Por Sumedho's suggestion. Self-doubt feels like this. It goes through us. It's uncomfortable, but we no longer seek another object to get rid of it. And as we go through that, we go beyond doubt, not beyond the doubting thinking mind, but beyond the very emotional sense of self-doubt. And there's a tremendous liberation there. We go beyond anxiety by allowing anxiety to be conscious. Luang Por Sumedho's early teachings were quite often emphasizing the language he was using. Consciousness is the escape hatch. Consciousness is the escape hatch. So if I was going through some turmoil, he would say that in BuddhaDhammo, consciousness is the escape hatch. Welcome it into your mind. And this is a deeper implication of what compassion is. Compassion is the allowing of all the internal things, all the things that come with it. It's not just about me and an external person. It's about the inner movement of my own heart and mind. And so the great compassion, the kind of Mahakaruna, is one that accepts all things, rejects none. And if I've intuited that with other people, with myself, I've come to the heart chakra, I've cultivated silence and stillness, then whatever comes is fine. And it actually, the kind of difficult moments that we might have, these actually make you more compassionate because they are difficult. Fear is difficult, anxiety is difficult, self-doubt is difficult. And as you really know them, rather than just try to figure them out and distract with thought, and this is what the fasting on thought is. Like if I have an anxious thought about tomorrow and I say, I'm going to give up thinking about it, but I'm going to feel it now in the heart, that's the fasting on thought. And then it comes up into consciousness and it's uncomfortable. My desire mind wants to go to thinking. I said, no, I'm going to really know this feeling of anxiety now, in the moment, as it is. Have to be in a safe place to do this. But as I feel it, its discomfort comes through me. And what happens is desire ceases. Because desire does not want this discomfort. It does not want anxiety. It wants security. It wants the known. It wants an answer. And now I'm saying, no, that's fine. That's fine to feel insecure. It's this way. This is in the context of a safe environment. It's not in the jungle somewhere. So as something like self-doubt or fear comes up, what comes codependent on is desire. The desire to have the comfortable, the desire to have the beautiful, the desire to have confidence, desire to have whatever it might be. And this is where the Four Noble Truths come in. The problem with anxiety is not the anxiety, it's the desire not to have the anxiety, vibhava tanha. And as I see that, what's the antidote is love, is compassion, is welcoming, is allowing, this different kind of language you use. So you allow that which just seems unallowable. You witness that which you would not want to witness. And I've certainly gone through, I found my own practice is not linear. You'd think, okay, I'm a monk. I just keep chipping away. It gets better and better, better and better, better. But it's not worked that way for me. Different times of my life, I faced different situations, different stresses, different things have come up. But the refuge is always the same. Stillness, knowing, and the open heart. Nowadays, if some difficult material comes up, then I really welcome it. I say, okay, this is good for me. This is purification. Early on, I didn't understand that. I was always trying to fix it and analyze it and do some kind of a practice. But thanks to the beautiful teachings of Luang Sumedho, he kept encouraging me, just open to it. It won't hurt you. It's not who you are. If you're going to identify with anything, identify with awareness, not with the fears, not with the self-disparagement, not with all those self-identities which have been conditioned into us. Be that awareness, be the knowing. So Luang Sumedho's teaching was always that, be the knowing, be Buddha, not as some kind of conceited individual, but as something bigger than that. Now, the context of a monastic life is one of self-surrender, in the sense that we as monastics have a rule, and we have a lifestyle which we can give ourselves to. The same is true of family life. It's your partner, your kids, your work. This is what you surrender to, but it's not so obvious, perhaps, as a monastic life. So in monastic life, we have language, we have ritual, which then are ways of opening the heart, going to stillness, but also engaging with life in a way that develops us in very beautiful ways. So, like, let's say we have the recommendation that as monks living together and lay people, we say, I will not, I make an intention not to think, speak, or act in ways which are harmful to my brothers and sisters. Now, sometimes I can't think like that, maybe, but I can certainly act in that way. And that is the life of morality, the life of sila. So these high teachings that we have, a background and foreground, are in the context of very grounded teachings on morality is important, nonviolence is important, honesty is important, fidelity is important, sobriety is important, kind of moderation in things is very important, because otherwise it would not work. And then the way, say, in monastic life, we relate to each other. We have a lot of things. It's not like any of us are designing this life for ourselves. So it's not based on individuality. It's not based on individual expression, but it is based upon individual responsibility. So we all have a responsibility to each other, but it's not like expressing our, like, none of us have a different haircut. You've noticed we all have the same haircut. None of us have a different outfit. We all have the same outfit. Maybe some have better sandals than others, I'm not sure. So the human expression we have is corporate. Not it's like how can I serve the group? How can I be a good individual in the group? And this is so helpful to have a situation which isn't designed by me or Ajahn Sumedho or Loppa Cha, designed by the Buddha, that we give up to. And so the ideas of self-surrender are very strong in all religious traditions, all spiritual traditions. Nowadays, of course, cultures stresses individuality and individual preferences and individual tastes and all of that, which has its advantages too, because religion has been misused in many ways and has been used in suppressive ways and so on. But my experience of the religious life, and I'm very conservative in that sense. I have a conservative religious form that I live by, and I realize how lucky I am. So being with Kamal and his family, I saw, yeah, they have their rituals of prayer. I have my rituals of chanting. I have my rituals of bowing, and these are bigger than me. And this is what traditional Buddhism that I learned in Thailand offered in a way that is different than just having a meditation technique that you work with. So our attempt here at Tisarana is to somehow, we are Westerners, we're conditioned by Western culture, but to try to use the best of those ancient formats of a group of people chanting together in unison, a group of people bowing. One of the beautiful ceremonies we have, and I've talked about it oftentimes, is the ceremony of asking for forgiveness, which Beta don't do this time, please. Beta's always doing this, but anyway, um, with Lompo Samedo at Amaravati on Saturday morning, the Sangha was invited into the temple. We were maybe with monks and nuns, we were probably 150, and Lompo Samedo was there, and there were three monks, Sajjanane, Lompo Neg, Lompo Damrong, Lompo Liam, sitting beside on chairs, and we did this ceremony. It's just asking for forgiveness. And because Lompo was junior to Lompo Liam, he did the ceremony with Lompo Liam first. And Lompo's kind of tottery, and he had a container of flowers, which he offered to Lompo Liam. Lompo Liam accepted it, and he did a reciprocal chant with Lompo Liam. So Lompo Samedo, 90 years old, I don't know how many of us are Lompo Liam, and they've known each other since they were young monks together. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And what was lovely about it was there was a kind of cultural format for doing that. They had a way that this could be done. And then the rest of the Sangha, Lompo sat down in his chair, and then various people had bouquets of flowers, arrangements of flowers, and they offered them to Lompo. Maybe I think there were 6 or 7. Uh, and then we stepped back, and then we did the Kokamatot, which is a statement and a response of asking for forgiveness for anything I've done with body, speech, and mind, inadvertently or on purpose. Please forgive me for my offenses. You are forgiven, please forgive me. It's a reciprocal ritual that's done, but because it was available to us, all of us could participate in this communion of gratitude and communion of I was crying. It was so wonderfully powerful. Um, Secular culture doesn't have these kinds of things as much, and although they can become blind rituals, I found in the Ajahn Chah tradition, we've used them in a way which are very, very meaningful and beautiful. Now, I don't know how you can bring rituals into lay life, but certainly having a Buddha image and having flowers and having a space where the ideas of Buddhism are always prevalent, like a shrine room, lighting incense, taking care of the shrine, putting flowers in the shrine. So you bring out the sense of devotion, opening the heart, rather than just the intellectual part or the struggling with my practice. It's a language you hear a lot, right? I'm struggling with my practice. My practice isn't going well. Well, actually, if you just offer flowers, you do some chanting, you open the heart, this brings up a beautiful devotional quality. So these two themes seem to be ringing in my heart quite a lot: silence and stillness and compassion. And I seem to be returning to them a lot and less in the intellectual structures. But I do have a background. I have a background of study. So in terms of Buddhist practice, you need a background for Noble Truths, but you don't need that many concepts. I think we need to go really inwards and really understand our own suffering and how to go beyond it. So I think that's plenty for contemplation and reflection. So I'll leave that there.
Andamayam Dhammakataya Sadhu Parandadhamma Se Sadhu 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 Anumodam. Thank you, Lord Paul. That's really, very beautiful.
Any questions for anyone?
Anyone's got questions? Malika.
Malika, how are you? How's the weather down under?
Very, very cold.
Cold. What's cold? How much is cold?
Yeah. Ajahn,
15?
I was listening to one of the talks in Sri Lanka, one of the Buddhist channels, and they interviewed a monk called Ajahn Joe Atulo.
Oh, yes.
So he said he was how he became a Buddhist and how in 2007 he attended one of your retreats and he wanted to become a monk. And
Right.
he went to Kisarana and in 2008 and then 2010 he became a monk.
That's right.
Sampada, yeah, he was talking about you and I had so much mudita knowing that you're his teacher, and
How did he look? Okay.
yeah, he
I
spoke
haven't
in,
seen him for a while. He's been in Sri Lanka.
yeah, he spoke in Sinhalese, our language.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah,
Great. Sadhu.
yes, it just the interpreter was just saying using English, but he was trying to use pure Sinhalese.
Well, good for him. He
Yeah,
has a good study. He likes to study, so I can imagine he did quite well.
yeah, yeah. So
All right.
he's trying to organize and see because he says that in the Sri Lankan history they are in Ritigal. I don't know if they have been to Ritigal. It's a
No.
forest. Yeah, they are how the Arahants were just floating around, and so this
Oh, that's
legend
nice to have
story and
floating
all that.
arahants.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So he's trying to see how it went off. Like
Okay.
now I know Arahants anymore, so he's trying to.
Oh, who told you that?
Big job, big job. And he's coming to Sydney in June 26th
Oh,
or something.
great. Well, maybe you can see him then.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay, Malika. Nice to
Thank
hear.
you.
Good
Yeah.
feedback.
Thank you, Ajay.
Okay, be well.
Thank you. Anyone who's got any questions, comments?
Can we finish with the Karanyametta?
Okay.
Or am I
Yep.
too quick?
I'm just giving others a chance if they have got any questions.
I think I stumped them. I do that sometimes.
Yes, we have one question coming from Laura.
Okay. Laurent. Hello, Laurent. Do you have a question?
Hello, hello. Well, yeah, but I think Bita was talking about somebody in the chat. Were you, or was it me?
No, no. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
that's good. So you mentioned calmness and compassion as being one of the aim of our practice. And in my meditation, how do I attain this stillness? And what do you suggest? Just a silent nose
Well,
meditation, or
it's more like
please?
a noticing, Laurent, rather than an attainment. So if you can, what I find, if you take some simple sense experience like sound, normal nature sound, and just allow your attention to rest in listening. Now, allow the sound to come to you rather than going out to sound. So you're not identifying that's a robin or that's a car. So the idea is a kind of receptive awareness, receptive listening, right? So in that receptive listening, your mind, your attention isn't going out to sound, but it's allowing sound to come to you. So in that listening, contemplate change, that you notice how sound is changing, and notice that the awareness is silent and unchanging. So it's a kind of noticing of something that's always there. It's subtle, but it's not an attainment. So if you're trying to attain calm, what you tend to do is you try to get rid of that which is not calm, correct? And all of us have suffered from that kind of error, I would say. And that's probably a necessary struggle that we go through. So this suggestion is using ordinary thing, not even calling it meditation, comfortable, awake, and this, okay, what is it? And then you notice, yeah, well, awareness is always there, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, presence, call it what you will. Actually, it's always there, but I don't tend to notice presence or awareness. I tend to always be drawn to the objects because I'm hungry, because I have pain, because of difficult memories, and so on. So once you sort of touch that background, then you try to intuit that more and more with simple exercises. So you might do that with sound. And then, as I said, we'll do that with the breath. So here you're not like concentrating on the breath in order not to think. You just take your kind of general a sensitivity to the breathing mechanism and allowing that. And you say, well, that's changing. Yeah. But what's unchanging? And you notice the same silence, the same knowing, the same awareness. But silence isn't an object like the silence of no cars on the street at 4 a.m. It's not that. It's something behind all of that. So there's the silence of circumstance, where there are no cars on the street, but there's the background silence of consciousness itself, of awareness itself, of knowing itself. And you just want to notice that. And then you want to start to cultivate that in very simple ways. So you become more familiar with that in a more and more intuitive sense, so that when the difficult parts of life get triggered, emotions and stuff like that, you've got some experience of the background, and you can maybe relax more into the background. Maybe not. Maybe you get overwhelmed. Fine. Start again. So it's like, you're kind of intuiting something that's always there. It's not attainment. You're not looking for anything. That's why I think listening is very, very good, because it can be a very receptive sense experience. Just let the sound come to you. And you're not looking for any sound. You're just noticing there is sound and there's awareness of sound. That makes sense? Oh, you're muted. Take your mute off.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
It makes total sense, Ajahn. Right now, I just broke my ankle last week.
Oh,
So yeah, well, it happens. But that pain gets me away from my meditation. Can I do the same with that pain? Can I?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're like, there is pain. And what is not pain? Awareness is not pain.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's a very important experiment with the body.
Okay.
Very, very, very important. Like, don't hurt yourself. Obviously, take your
No, of
painkillers and
course.
so on. But but make it like an experiment. You'll learn a lot. Yeah. Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Where are you situated, Laurent?
I'm in Calgary, but I have a French accent because I'm French. That's what
Okay.
happens when you're French, and that's what the name comes from.
That's what I hear.
But in fact, I would love to come and visit you soon because you're in Ottawa.
Please do.
It's not. Yes, I will. Thank you
And
very
and
much.
one of our monks just had a reconstruction of his ankle,
Ouch.
and he
It
has
was.
to get the other reconstructed. So you'll have an ally, I'm sure.
Yes. Okay. I'll come. Thank you, Ajahn.
Okay. Be well.
Long Paul, there's a question coming from Elaine.
Okay.
Elaine, are you here? Yep.
Yes. Thank
Hi,
you,
Elaine.
Lompo. Good morning.
Elaine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm in Kuala Lumpur, so it's blisteringly hot out
Okay.
here.
I just saw you in Hartridge, didn't I?
Yes, and in Amaravati. Yes.
As well, yeah. So what's the question?
Well, it's very similar because, when one is in anxiety, you can say to yourself, this is not me. So intellectually, you say that. And then, of
Right.
course, you can then go to consciousness. You can say, it's not me, and what has not changed, as Lompos just said. And then you can reflect on the fact that there's still silence. There's something else behind it. But Lompo, the truth is, when one is in anxiety or pain or suffering, you feel one and the same. So how is this muscle being developed? So intellectually, you literally have to force the thought.
Well, I think you have a combination of body awareness and that sense of what the background is. Now, if you don't have a strong body awareness, anxiety just takes you into thinking and creating a sense of self. If you develop a strong body, not the kind of body awareness like that you're focusing on one object, but this the kind of really anxiety is very much in the throat, in the heart, and in the guts, right? So if you have an embodied sense of breathing, feels like Ajahn Sucitto teaches whoever, you really get a sense of that. And when the anxiety comes, you don't go to the self narratives, but you do go to the body. So you welcome it in the body, right? And it creates self narratives, and they are real in the sense that they are reality. But when you have enough awareness to know not the thinking, not the self creating, but the body, and you go to that, then their tension begins to, the tension produces the fear, produces the anxiety. They're coexisting, I think. And as they come out of you, you're now referencing the body. You're not referencing thought. You're not referencing self. So the language of background, foreground can be a hindrance to that, because you're just trying to think your way out of this anxiety. In other words, you think that if you can think about consciousness and not self, you'll get rid of this anxiety. But actually what's going on is vibhava tanha. You don't want this thing, so you think in a certain way not to have that thing. And so vibhava tanha fools you. And that happened to me a lot until I understood the nature of compassion with fear. So then, the thing was welcome the anxiety. So that I would suggest probably like the thinking mind is now just trying to figure out a way not to have it. Where the language of metta is fine. You can come, you can stay for an hour, you can stay for 20 days. And that's a huge shift because it's counterintuitive, isn't it? But it does work. It really does work, because what happens is that whole breath channel, like your throat sometimes is very tight with anxiety. You start to yawn. The tightness of your belly starts to relax more. You feel that, the heart chakra. But it has to come from a welcoming. So if you're in a safe situation and you're not going to get hurt, then when it gets triggered, say, okay, great. Come on, let's have a look. What does this really, really feel like? Rather than going off into the conceptual mode. That's the problem. The conceptual mode is actually an avoidance. That makes sense?
Yes, yes. So Luang is suggesting one coexists peacefully with one's anxiety. Just welcome it in, give it metta, right? And say, you can hang out
Engage
here
it,
for
yeah.
as long as you want.
Yeah, engage it like physically. What do my guts actually feel like? And like really kind of go into it. Don't be careful not to do some kind of dissociation. Oh, I love you. You're fine. Like really go into it. That kind of thing.
What, do an analysis of why it's here, or just welcome it and
No,
say, sit here.
I've never found that helpful, because I've
Okay.
had fears come up, which I have no idea where they're coming from. They're just the subconscious has, collected these things. I have, and as soon as I go to analysis, I'm actually trying to get rid of them.
Right. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
just welcome it with metta. Thank you. That's very
Yeah.
helpful, Luang. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Welcome to the club, the anxiety club.
Just one last question. I think Malika has just put up her hand again.
Monica, what's the question? How are you?
Ajahn,
Yeah.
it is now you said silence is not changing. Silence is not changing. Yes, and silence is not an object. So how do you coordinate that? is it the sound of silence that is not changing? Or
Well, I'm sitting here.
yeah.
I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
And I can hear the robins going to sleep. And
Yeah.
if I don't go out to those objects,
Yeah.
and I just let them come to me, I notice that there is presence, there's consciousness, and that has no attributes. We use the word silence because you need language to speak, but consciousness has no attribute. But without, or presence or awareness doesn't have a color or a taste or a largeness or a smallness. So when we say silence, the problem with language is kind of, oh, then I have to find the silence as an object. But the fact that you are, like, just the fact that you're sitting here, where here is, and listening to me means that consciousness or presence is there. You don't tend to notice that because we're always in objects. So that's why, like the suggestion that Luang Por Sumedho makes, receptive awareness or intuitive awareness. That's what he's pointing to. This abiding in listen. So listening is a very good word, but not just listening to sound, listening like just listening, like receptive. And that's where you find the silence. If you look for it, you will never find it. Because looking is always an outward movement. I'm looking for an experience that I don't have now. But that silence is always here now. That's why that's why it points to the Amata Dhamma, not a matter of time, a Kalika Dhamma, here and now to be seen. So it's just a noticing that you've not noticed. We don't tend to notice. So try the exercise I gave to Laurent.
Okay. Yeah.
Sit down and just listen. And just let the sounds come to you. Get to that kind of receptive mode. Oh yeah, there's sound. And notice that the knowing has no sound. And be the knowing. So rather than always doing anapanasati or metta bhavana or sending metta, those are all activities which engage you as an objective person. Like metta bhavana. If you do metta bhavana and you have your grandkids and you have your relatives, then it's always Malika, me, doing this for them. There's always a sense of self there. This kind of metta, welcoming, is not about me or others. It's about an attitude that welcomes all things and rejects none.
So can we take silence as knowing as well?
Yes.
And consciousness
Yeah,
as
that
well?
would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
that
clear.
would work.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you.
Okay, Malik.
Good help to you. Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you.
Okay, Luang Por.
Are we done?
Yes. Can we offer the verses on the Buddha's words on loving kindness?
That would be nice in English. Let's do that. We have some books for our friends that could follow. But just get our books out for our friends here. Hold on. You got the page number? What is it? 37 in the English. Okay. 37, yep. This is what should be done as the first one. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. As a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Okay, everyone, nice to be with you.
Thank you, Lompo. Allow us now to firmly take leave from you by chanting Araham. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavatam Abhivademi Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamma Namasami Suparipano Bhagavato Sangho Sangham Namami.
Thank you, Beta.
Thank you, Lampa. Be well.
See you next time, everyone.
May Ajahn Karunigo and Ajahn Suchito have a good time with you this coming week.
They're great. Okay, ciao. Auf Wiedersehen. Sayonara.